Hey everyone, Rodney here at Cleves Tech, and today I'm going to cover the best local AI video model right now, in my opinion, and that would be the WAN 2.1 model, and I'm going to show you how to use it easily without having to use anything like Comfy UI or any other complex stuff. All these videos I'm showing now were created with the WAN 2.1 model and locally. So far in my testing, the WAN model does very well for many things, and instead of having to figure out how to get the things configured, I'm going to show you how to use it with a very simple interface, and you can have it up and running in no time. Are you going to be generating a video every few minutes if you have a reasonably powered GPU, NVIDIA GPU? No. If you have enough power, it can be done pretty quickly, but with my 4070, for example, and 12 gigabytes of VRAM, a 5-second clip can take a little over 20 minutes depending on the settings. But thankfully, you can use this to queue up many videos and even leave it running overnight. Okay, so today, as I mentioned, we're going to be covering the WAN 2.1 model and how to do it locally. There are a lot of different ways online, a lot of services. I've discussed in my previous video. You can use nim.video. And I will use that to show you a couple things further along in here afterwards, options you have. We're not going to be using Comfy or anything like that because that gets more complicated, and I know a lot of people don't like to run that. To do it easier, we're going to be using WAN2GP, which is a project from Deep Beep Meep. Instead of having to go through and setting all this up and installing everything, there is an easier way, and that's going to be using Pinokio. And Pinokio is created by Cocktail Peanut. He does a great job with this app. I recommend it. There's a lot of stuff in here. And I'm not going to show you how to install that. It's pretty simple. Just click on download, follow the download instructions in here. It'll explain everything. Now, once you have Pinokio up and running, this is what you have. Now, I do have a few things already installed, obviously. If you don't have it installed yet, you won't have those. And we just want to go up to the Discover section up here, top right. Click on that. And in here, we're going to be looking for the WAN 2.1. Now, it may be at the top of the list if you're installing this when I make the video. If not, then it may move further down this list so you can look for it. But you want to look for the WAN 2.1 is what we're looking for. Currently, it's NVIDIA only. That could, of course, change at any point. I don't know if it will or not. Okay, so we're just going to click on WAN 2.1. There's always information down below, but we're going to click on download. It'll open a new window here, as you can see, and it's going to give us a save option as, and we're just going to save it as win.get, which is the default. We'll click on download. Then we're going to get the install option here. You can go into customize if you want to set up for local shares so you can use it between computers and any other options. I'm not going to cover those. We're just going to stick with the default install here. And then it's going to go through the setup process. Now, it only is going to install the basic stuff initially. It won't install a lot of the models. Those will be installed as you need them. So depending on what options you choose, stuff like that, things will be happening in the background sometimes. So if you go to click on something and it doesn't happen instantly, you can always check into the terminal here and see what's happening in the background, and it will show you. Right now, we don't have any other option here but to watch the terminal because it is installing. But once you have other things up and running and you're using it, then you will have that option you can always switch back into, which I'll show you. Now, a lot of this, of course, depends on how fast your internet is. So if you have a slow internet connection, it can take longer. If you have a very fast internet connection, it's going to obviously go much quicker. Nice thing about using it this way is everything's kept inside its own folders in Pinokio. So if I go into my Pinokio folder here, you'll see this is what my folder looks like. If I go into the API folder, that's where that folder is here. One thing to keep in mind is if you forget to download a video from the interface, they are all kept in here in the cache folder in here. So if we go into the API, WAN.get, and then go into the cache, and then in here, the Gradio temp directory. Now it's currently empty, but as you create videos, there'll be a different folder in here for each project, which you can delete when you're done if you don't want to keep them. But you can always go back and grab those if you forgot to grab it when you generated the video. Okay, so our installation is complete. We'll hit done. Okay, now once it's installed, you'll be at this point. And if we go back to the home, you'll see in here, it's listed now here. If you ever have an issue, first I recommend going to the Discord for Pinokio. Get a lot of help on there for tech support. Worst case scenario, you can always delete and reinstall. Don't find I usually have to do that, but that's always a worst case scenario. So we'll go back into here. Now, They did just do an update to this, so bear with me. Things have changed a little bit. I was actually a little confused when I set this up because things didn't look quite the same, and I figured out why, and that's because there was just a big update overnight. When I reinstalled it, I got the update. So always remember, click that update button, just in case, every once in a while. So because there might be some new cool stuff. In here we have, my understanding now, text to video, image to video, you don't have to click on one or the other. You can actually now go between them while you're in the interface. There is the advanced options I'm not going to cover, but they compiled. It's supposed to be faster, but may not work. You can try these options. So I'm just going to click on the image to video. Whichever one I think I click on first is what it's going to download for the models. So let's go ahead, click on image to video. I prefer to use that 99% of the time. I rarely ever use any text to video model, but the text to video model is much smaller, so it will probably run on much lower end systems. I don't know the exact specifics on what you can get to run because a lot of it depends on VRAM, RAM in your system, a lot of other things. I'm using this on a 4070 to 12 gigabytes of VRAM. I've used it with 10 gigabytes without an issue, and from my understanding, it can go down below 8 gigabytes. So as long as you have 8, you should probably be fine for at least shorter videos. You may not be able to do as high quality the longer videos because a lot of that, they do say 5 gigabytes plus VRAM, but like I said, I have not tested it for that. Now, when you first do this, this is going to be the first time because it's going to install all the models that are going to be needed. And also whenever you change settings, it may need to do this as well in the background and download these models. So as you can see, we're in the terminal now. It hasn't launched yet. If you have a slow internet connection, this will definitely take a while. Some of these models, like the image to video model, I believe is about 16 gigabytes. And then you have like some of the other ones are 5 gigabytes. And there's a lot of other smaller ones you need. Okay, so now everything has been downloaded in the background. As you can see, we have now the Open Web UI, which is the tab we're on at the moment, which is the program. And at any time, if we click on terminal, we'll go back and see exactly what's happening in the background. So if you're not sure what's happening, if things aren't moving, go click on the terminal and see if it's downloading or doing stuff behind the scenes. Now, some of this stuff I'm not going to be able to fully cover because there was the big update last night. They've added some new features. One of the options now is you can switch between the image to video and text to video right in here. And it looks like they've changed the configuration. See here. Well, the first thing, let's go up here. This gives you an idea roughly what you'll be able to accomplish potentially depending on what your system requirements, how much VRAM you have. I'm running 12 gigabytes on this 4070. I've run it with 10 gigabytes without an issue, and I run videos up into the 12-second range on this without too much of an issue. Now I'm using the 480 model, not the 720. When I did try to run the 720, I ran into issues. It is a higher quality, but I don't know if it's that big of a difference in all honesty. I find with the 480, once you upscale it, and smooth out the video and everything, it comes out very well. So that's what I'm going to be using here is the 480. If you obviously have a lot of VRAM, if you got a 4090 and you got plenty, use the 720. You're probably going to get a little bit better results. If you do go with longer videos, you do run a chance that you'll get distortions and artifacts and stuff like that. They say longer than 8 seconds. I've gotten plenty of videos 10 seconds without too much of an issue. Worst case, I can always edit and clip the end of it or something like that. Those are the basics. Now, I'm going to stick with the image to video for the most part, just to explain everything, because I feel that's what most people will be doing. Now, there is a new option here, and that is to use both a start and an end. Use both start and end image. I'm not going to really cover that because that just happened, and I don't have any experience using that yet. But I assume it's just like the other ones. You start your start image, end image, what you want the last frame and what you want the first frame, and it will try to create whatever in between. So, but we're going to just do it the starting image initially first here. Your first section is obviously this is where you're going to put the image or images. You can do multiple images, so you can queue this up overnight, which is a nice thing since a lot of times the videos do take time. They've set this up now where you can actually set it up to run a whole bunch at once and just come down, next morning, have a whole bunch of videos ready to go. And I'll cover what I've figured out on how this all works when it comes to that. It's a little bit tricky at first to understand, but once you know how it works, it does pretty well. Now, one thing I will mention is when it comes to the prompt, there's the prompt window where you type in your prompt, or prompts, I should say. I haven't found with WAN that it understands much for camera controls. I've kept the prompts pretty simple for the most part. I end up seeming to getting better results that way. The way this works with the prompts, you can put multiple prompts in here. So a cat running, let's say. And then if you want to do another prompt, you'd hit enter for a new line, and a dog running. These are just examples. I just want to show that this is now 2 prompts. If I hit enter again, now these can run on. You can make longer prompts. They can go multiple lines, but you always want to hit enter at the end to create a new prompt. And so it'll treat those as a couple prompts there. So the resolution, I'm going to be using the 480. Now, if I hit 720 here, it's going to switch and it'll have to download. I'm not going to switch that because my system, I haven't got the 720 to work well. So I'm sticking with the 480. The number of frames, and one thing to remember with WAN is it generates at 16 frames per second. And I'm going to show you after a couple ideas on what you can do to improve the frame rate. I do have a video on how to do that, but I will cover it real quick on different options. There's a lot of different tools out there. I don't know all of them. I have a couple of different ways that I do it. At this one, the 81, that's 5 seconds by default. If we wanted to increase that, we can slide that all the way up. When you start getting really over into the higher range, you're going to start running into potential issues, but definitely experiment with it. So the number of inference steps, the key to think about that is the more steps there are, the more likely the video is going to be a little bit better. Think of it more like the number of times that the model polishes a video from random noise until it gets to the end. So the more steps there are, usually the better it's going to be, but it'll be more detailed and stuff. But sometimes you can go too far. I started off with 30, I get pretty decent results, but lately I've been using about 40, and now it does definitely take longer, so do remember that. The more you increase that, the longer it's going to take because it has to go through more steps to do it. Now at that point, you could just go ahead, drop an image in here, and start everything off. So I'll drop the image in. You can do different aspect ratios. It'll automatically adjust to that. I did find that when I used some really high resolution ones that I'd upscaled and magnific and stuff, I didn't always get the best results. So I don't know if you really want to start with a super high resolution with tons of details. It might have more of a challenge with that. I haven't fully experimented. Let me go ahead and I'm going to delete everything in here. I'm going to get to the advanced options in a moment. And I'm just going to a creature. Okay. So a creature crawling around on a parchment paper, on a pan, fluid and dynamic motion. I don't know. I've been adding that. It seems to help, makes it work better. I'm still not an expert when it comes to prompting for this model yet. So that I can't really tell you for sure what works best or not. So that's one prompt. Now, if I wanted to, now let's get into the advanced mode here so I can show you what your options are when it comes to when you want to queue up. Because normally at this point, we could just change these, hit generate, and it'll generate a video. You could hit it again afterwards, and it'll generate another one with the same prompt. Down in here, your seed, if you've used AI tools before, that's just the starting, determines the starting noise. I'm almost always going to keep it random myself. And this is the default number of videos per prompt. So if you wanted to increase that and then we hit generate, it'll generate more than one per prompt. Then you have the multiple images as text prompts. Now, what would happen here, since we only have one image in there, I don't think it really matters here. So if we just put in 3 different prompts in here, it would then generate one video for each prompt that's in there. But if we put, and I think you have to put you can't just add another image. So for example, I can't just drop another image in there. You have to put them in there both at the same time, I believe. Yeah. So if you want to put 2 or 3 videos in there at once, I find if you're going to be using different prompts, that, well, one is use the same prompts and all the images are similar. So it matches up with those. or it's probably best to name your images like image 1, image 2, image 3. So when you drop them in here, they'll be in the order that you want. And then you can put the order of the prompts in here, because that's where this setting comes into place. So generate every combination of images and text. The way that works is, let's say, let me get rid of that. And let me put 3 images in here, just so I can start off with. So I have 3 images in here. Now, that's going to be first, 1, second, third. And if I were to just go ahead and hit generate right now, based upon every combination of images and text, it'll go ahead and create 3 videos based on this prompt. Now, if I put another prompt down here, let's say I go ahead and I wanted to try something slightly different and just remove the last part to see what the difference is. So now I have 2 prompts in here, and I were to hit generate, I'm going to get 6 videos. It's going to do this image. It'll go the first prompt, the second prompt, then that image, first, second, that image, first, second. So it'll walk through each one, and it'll do the prompts for each one. So that would, with 3 images and 2 prompts, that's going to be 6. If I had 3 prompts, it'd be 9. It would do all 3 for each. Now, if I go in here and put match images and text prompts, and then I had, let's say, a third prompt in here, so 1, 2, 3. At this point, I hit generate, it's going to generate just 3 videos. This one, this image with this first prompt, this image with this second prompt, and then the third image with the third prompt. That's how the multiple image one works. But I'm going to just stick with, for the moment, just one simple image. So that's how the multiple images and text prompts work. Now, as far as the guidance scale works, that's basically supposed to be how closely it follows your prompt versus being more creative. So if you go up with a higher guidance scale, it's going to more likely follow your prompt. But I haven't experimented a lot with that to see how much the results differ between, so I'm not entirely sure. The shift scaling is more for fine-tuned smoothness. I haven't played around a lot with that either, so I can't give a lot of guidance on what is the best options for those. I've been using it mostly with the defaults, and I've gotten pretty decent results. Now, negative prompt, the things that you don't want to see, I don't know how much it actually follows these. Like certain ones online, like Kling, I know, seems to just ignore things like that. But if there's certain in here, slow motion, let's say low quality, you put stuff in there. I don't know how well that works yet. I haven't fully tested and compared. Pcache, I haven't experimented with a lot, but from what I'm reading, yes, it speeds things up, but it's going to lower quality, and a lot of times people have said they haven't gotten the greatest results. In my opinion, if you're not getting as good of results and you end up using less of the videos, is it really worth the savings? I don't know. You can play with that. This I just leave as the default. And the skip layer, I played with that once or twice. I didn't have much good luck. It does say that it should improve it, but apparently if you go too much, then it can also, you can run into some glitches. So that I can't tell you an awful lot about. Now, as far as the denoising steps, the percentage start and end, the default is 10 and then 90. I've been actually using this at about 5 and 95. In theory, it might give a little bit better results because it starts denoising sooner or later, but that will increase the time it takes to generate the videos. And of course, you can hit this button to bring everything back to the defaults. Now, the other thing is you do have the configuration up here. I'm not going to go through a lot of this, but if you need it to run on a lower end system, you might want to change this. You can switch it to being the slightly better 480. It's the original, but it does require more RAM. It's going to be a little bit slower. Theoretically, it should improve the quality a little bit, but I didn't see much of a difference myself. Then you have the 720, same idea. I haven't been able to really run that, so I can't really demonstrate that, but if you have enough VRAM, go ahead and give it a shot. Same idea in here. You have different options to try to make it work on a lower end machine or take advantage if you have more power behind it. And you do have other options in here. I'm not going to dive into a lot of these. I've been just using them pretty much as the defaults at the moment until I can experiment more with a lot of these. And some of these, my system won't even work because I don't have it set up for that sort of stuff. So that's under the configuration tab. Let's go back to the image to video. And well, once you have all the stuff you have ready to go, all you need to do at that point is, as I said, you'll hit the generate button. And as I did mention in here, you can set this up. I've set this up, I think one night, I think it was like 16 videos I had run overnight. Came back, it was nice. Now I find it's probably a good idea to run multiple prompts on each image, because a lot of times you're not going to get the greatest results out of every single one, especially if they're longer videos or if they're more complex, something that it doesn't understand well. Now, once we go ahead, the other thing is there is the LoRAs as well. You can go ahead and download those. Those are like Pika effects and stuff like that. I'm not going to dive into that at the moment on using that because I haven't played around with them a lot. But you can go ahead, click that. It downloads all of them. Then you can use those with your images and everything. So once we have everything set up, all we have to do is go over and hit generate. And there we go. It's already started. And it will start showing a timer here and how many seconds it's gone along. And as you can see, it's going to do one video because that's what I have, one image and one prompt. Now, let's say I wanted to queue up another one. I could hit one more, please. And then I'll add another video to that with that same prompt. Now, the one thing I did experiment with a little bit is if you have a bunch of different images and prompts in here, you queue it up. There we go. That's now showing 2. And then you hit the one more, please. It doesn't do all of them. I think it just probably does the last one. I'm not sure yet on that. So just keep that in mind. It doesn't, like if you have 2 images with 2 prompts and you hit one more, please, it's only going to do like the last one every single time you click that, I think, or something. So you do want to set that up ahead of time. Now, there is other options in here I didn't mention in the prompts. There's comments and the macros, but I haven't really looked up how to do the macros yet, but it kind of, you can go to the GitHub. I know there's some information on there, but I don't think there's an awful lot that I could fully figure out because, well, I haven't really found the need for it yet. But I could imagine if you're wanting to do a lot of different ones and you kind of want to change things up to experiment with different prompts, that might be useful as well. I personally usually just type them all up in a text editor and just copy and paste them right into here. So I have a whole bunch of prompts set up to go. And I number my images as well, so they're all in the right order. And then I click it before I go to bed. And then when I come down in the morning, it's pretty much all done. So far in my experimentations, I did like a 7-second clip, which is what I've been commonly doing. 7, a little bit more. That's 113 frames. On my card, it takes about 40 minutes on 40 steps. With the denoising start and finish at 5 and 95%. And I actually can use my computer for a lot of other stuff. I can't do a lot of video VRAM intensive stuff when I'm doing that. But I can do stuff and it doesn't seem to really suck up an awful lot. So on mine here, you'll see just for this one, we're using 7.4 out of 12, decent amount of RAM as well. But I can still use my computer for a lot of other stuff while this is running. Now, one thing I have found, it still does have a lot of the WAN does have a lot of the issues that some of the other models I have. Like if you try to get a person to turn around, a lot of times they'll get twisted and distorted and things like that. So we're going to wait for this to finish. I will speed up the video as well, and then we'll come back to see the results of this. Okay, and now our first video is done. And I don't know, it shows the time up here, which was it 81 frames for 5 seconds. And like I said, I had it set on 40 steps and also had the denoising. adjusted down below from the defaults. So this was definitely going to take a little bit longer than the standard, but I find the 40 steps works better so far in my experimentation. So that'll continue going at that point and go on to the next video. But we can check out this one now. And so we'll click on that, bring it up, and hit the play button. There we go. Here we go. It's crawling around. Now, one thing you are going to notice, it is, it skips. It's because the frame rate is only 16 frames per second, so it's definitely not smooth. Now, and there are several ways of making that better. One is with a lot of video editors, like I use DaVinci Resolve, or online tools like here. Let's just go right into here. So this is one of the tools I use a lot, nim.video. I mentioned it in my previous one. I use this even, one thing I like about it is there's a lot of different tools in here. Not just a few tools. I'm not going to cover it in a lot of detail, but the plans are reasonably priced. These are the plans that they offer. I will include, I have an affiliate link that I'll include in the description, the first comment, that will give you 50% off the first month. Just to be aware that I do get a little bit from that. So once I'm in nim.video, this is what I use it for a lot, because sometimes I just want to post something or something like that, but I don't want to wait for the videos to finish because I have a whole bunch running and I want to do other stuff on them. And my system, I can't run like editing and all this sort of stuff at the same time. So this is where I'll go into my nim.video account, and up here, let's go to create. I'll do a new one. And they do have a lot. They have text to image. They have all the image. They even have the WAN model, which I do have a video that I just made on using it on here. But we're going to just use the upscale. I want to grab my video, so I'll click the download button here. I'm just going to show you the upscale. And this is one of the advantages. So one of the problems with the WAN model is it does do the 16 frames per second. So, and there are other ways to do this locally. I haven't experimented. A lot of times I use DaVinci Resolve and I use the optical flow feature in there. I set it to a higher frame rate and it does the work for me. But nim.video can do it as well. And I use it probably for about at least half my stuff that I'm working on. Because as I said, I can have Pinokio now and that's still generating on my system. So I'm not tying up. So I'm not tying up my system. It's still running. But now I can go into nim.video. I can go into here because as you can see, it says the 16 frames per second and the resolution. So it's pretty low resolution and it's a low frame rate. That's the nice thing with Nim is I can just drop it in here for 1 credit on their platform. I can double that frame rate from 16 to 32 and then I can increase the resolution. I'm just going to leave it for 2x here, so it'll just double that resolution. So let me just go ahead and generate that. Get that upscaling. It does take a few minutes to do the upscaling and everything else. Now, one thing I did mention is that if you go into the Pinokio folder, API folder, then the WAN.GP folder, and we go in, no, don't want to go into Git. Then we want to go into the cache folder, and then the Gradio temp directory. This is where all your videos are going to be saved in here. So if we go into here, it's going to show our videos right here. So we can always go back and grab that. If you forget to hit that little download button, you close it and then you realize, oh, there's a video I wanted. Okay, it looks like this is all done. So let's bring this up. And as we can see now, this is running at 32 frames per second. And that's running much smoother now. So that's one thing I like about Nim. I can do a lot of those and increase that frame rate. I find it's very useful. Like I said, you can do it a lot of locally, but this is a useful tool to have available in my opinion. So, okay, so that pretty much covers for the most part. Oh, the text to video section, same idea. Most of these settings are the same. You can choose your resolution in here. Then you have the number of frames, the prompt. Obviously, you don't put in your image or anything like that. And then you have your advanced options as well. I did go ahead and click on that just to get the LoRAs in there, just to show what they would look like. And the way this would work for I believe is you go in here, you've the gun, apply a LoRa preset, go into here, subject man. So we would put woman. And she. So a woman looks intensely off camera, and the camera zooms out as she pulls gun. Well, I'm assuming that has to do with, how this works, the LoRas work. So yeah, so you basically just fill that in, it looks like. Then you go ahead, set what you want, and hit generate, and you get your LoRa video. I'm not going to go ahead and do that, but as far as the frame rate and upscaling the video, there are lots of different methods to doing that. Like I said, I showed you, I use nim.video is one of the things I use. And I also do it in DaVinci Resolve locally. There are a lot of other options out there that you can look into. So that's pretty much it. I do want to thank you for watching. If you did find the video helpful, please do hit the like button. If you'd like to, you can also, there's a link in the description if you want to donate a cup of coffee. Have a wonderful day.